Hi there, welcome to a Friday morning kitchen reading. Today I'm doing chapter 8 from Things I Would Have Told My Children If I Had Them, An Adult's Guide to Living in Connection. There are only 10 chapters in this book, and the last one is a very short kind of end note to the reader, so I am going to savor reading to you today even more than usual. I will really miss sitting with you and exploring my own story. So thank you for coming. And here goes chapter 8, Authenticity and Goodness. What is a good human being? I grew up in a Catholic family on both my father's and mother's side. My grandparents were very religious, both grandfathers being vigilant about not only attending Mass, but also being active in the church. My maternal grandfather would hold Mass as a layman in the Catholic Church, having the Eucharist blessed beforehand by a priest, and had a following at a small village church. After he died, we found a case full of his sermons. He was a force of nature, even just sitting in his favorite chair up close to the TV. His intellect, his sense of morality, but mostly, it was his humility that inspired me. Humility isn't a characteristic that we can make a checklist for. Despite the depth of his humility and all that implied about him, what I observed was him being blankly labeled as a good man, as if this label in any way gave light to his surrendering to a life of service, despite that he could have chosen to apply his brilliance to all manner of materialistic endeavors. He was a businessman, but never sought to have more than he needed for himself and his family, and used his intellect to teach love, care, and community. What have you been taught about goodness? The idea of being good as something that would get me social credit stuck in my head very early on. A child's interpretation of such complex subjects determines much of how they perceive themselves as adults. For the elders in my family, particularly, goodness and religion went together. I went to an all-girls Catholic school in both my primary and secondary school life. The university I attended was also a Catholic one, but less imposingly so. My challenge with this was that very early on, I questioned all in the way of religiosity. I had a confrontation with a priest which saw me walking home from church earlier than I was expected to one day, having been kicked out. My father recalls that I asked an inappropriate question, and I was silenced by being given an ultimatum to either alter my thinking or get out. I opted out rather than comply. When I refused to make my confirmation rite at age 14, one of the 3 sacraments of Christian initiation, my family elders were distressed. It was truly believed that I had compromised the future of my soul. What does it mean to be a good person, a good human being? If my soul is damned, does that mean that I am bad no matter what I do or feel? In my mid-20s, I began to seriously question my motives for wanting to help others. What was the measure of seemingly good acts? Is being good defined in the context of perfection? Is goodness something objective, or is it a subjective judgment? Can you do good things and not be a good person? I don't know that I have the answer. The concept of goodness is still debated, and philosophers and ethicists for centuries have discussed it. I do have some clarity, however, and it came to me with a deeper understanding of authenticity and authentic action. Open quote. Authenticity is the daily practice of letting go of who we think we're supposed to be and embracing who we are. Choosing authenticity means cultivating the courage to be imperfect, to set boundaries, and to allow ourselves to be vulnerable. Exercising the compassion that comes from knowing that we are all made of strength and struggle, and nurturing the connection and essence of belonging that can only happen when we believe we are strong. Authenticity demands wholehearted living and loving, even when it's hard, even when we're wrestling with the shame and fear of not being good enough, and especially when the joy is so intense that we're afraid to let ourselves feel it. End quote. The Gifts of Imperfection by Brene Brown. Authentic action is born out of vulnerability and sometimes painful, dark, and scary circumstances. It is not directed by the expectations of others or based on the fear of social sanctions placed on us for defying societal cultural norms. Yes, we can do good acts, but does that mean we are being good? I think that the only way to be good is to acknowledge that what makes us so is that we confront those parts of ourselves which are cast in shadow. We can be imperfect and yet hold a true intention to strive in each moment to live with an open heart and to cultivate empathy, compassion, and connection. We must be willing to be cast in the light of imperfection, taking that chance that we will be revealed as unkind, selfish, and scared, but still capable of good. Consider that, open quote, to be a good human being is to have a kind of openness to the world, an ability to trust uncertain things beyond your own control that can lead you to be shattered in very extreme circumstances for which you were not to blame. That says something very important about the condition of the ethical life that is based on a trust in the uncertain and on a willingness to be exposed. It's based on being more like a plant than like a jewel, something rather fragile, but whose very particular beauty is inseparable from that fragility. End quote. Martha Nussbaum. I have found that it is this striving, this recognition of my fragility and my willingness to be vulnerable despite it, that is the true measure of my actions. Key points. Strive toward authentic action. The only way to be good is to acknowledge that what makes us so is that we confront those parts of ourselves which are cast in shadow with the true intention to be of service to others, ourselves, and all we affect. It is the recognition of our fragility and our willingness to be vulnerable despite it that is the true measure of our actions. We can strive in each moment to live with an open heart and to cultivate empathy, compassion, and connection. Thank you for sitting with me, or standing, walking, driving. However, this reading found you, may it leave you with a sense of the beauty within. I'll see you next time. Have a beautiful day and take care.